This project, you're going to want to pick your fabric. I always go for something that is cotton and a little bit breathable because we are going to double up on our fabric. You're also going to want some pins so that you can put all of your fabric into place before you sew it. This is just going to make it a little easier. You're also going to need a rotary cutter. If you don't have one of these, you can use scissors easily. I actually go back and forth between using both. This is another optional thing. You can get some of these sewing clips. This comes in handy for one of the masks specifically that we're gonna make, but it's optional. You're gonna need some measuring tape. You can also use a ruler for this easily if you don't have soft measuring tape like I do. And lastly, you're going to need an iron. Now, this is really irritating to do without an iron, but if you don't have one, it is possible. For this first mask, you are going to want to have a template like this to cut your fabric out. Now, you can easily download something online to, print this template out and cut it yourself, but I'm going to show you how to make one easily at home. So first, you're going to start out by drawing a small line on the back of your page, 3 inches long. Next, you are going to draw a 6-inch line on the other end of your paper, and you're going to make this line 5 inches away from the 3-inch line. And then you're just going to connect the ends of those lines together. You're also going to want to make sure that you have a working pen for this. Next, what you're going to want to do is you're going to put your ruler starting at your 6-inch line, going along the sides that you just created, and you're going to mark in 1 inch on both sides. Make a mark on the center of your 6-inch line, and then you're going to connect that center point to the 1-inch marks that you made by curving outwards just a little bit. Next, you're going to want to make sure that where those 1-inch marks are, that curved line extends out to the 6-inch line. And then you're going to go from that end point to the other end point of the 3-inch line, and you're going to curve inwards this time just a little bit. This part I just freehand, but if you need a measurement, I would say it's about 1/4 of an inch above the original side line. And then you cut it out and you have a perfect template to do this mask that I'm about to show you. Now for all of these masks, you are going to want something to be your interfacing fabric. Now it's usually better to just go with a neutral color, something that is cheap, which I find that white cotton fabric in bulk is the cheapest because this is what is going to be touching your face and covered, so nobody's really going to see it. And I just like to iron it flat. And you're going to trace your template onto the fabric. Now, an easier way to get 2 pieces out of this, obviously, is to just fold it in half. And then you're going to put your template on and trace it out, and this is going to give you 2 pieces of your interfacing fabric, which you're going to need to make one mask. Go ahead and just cut out your fabric. Now when you're cutting it out, it's better to make it a little bigger if you have to, because that will just give you more seam allowance. It's always better, oh my goodness, it's always better to have a little bit extra than not enough. So I usually just cut along the line, but if you are worried about cutting it out, then you can cut it just a little bit bigger on the outside of the lines. Now you have your 2 pieces of interfacing fabric. And you're gonna do this same exact thing for whatever you want your outer fabric to be. For this one, I am just going with this pink peony, I guess, flower, something. I don't know flowers. Now, something that's gonna come really important is you need to know the good and the bad sides of your fabric. So you can see this is the good side and that is the bad side. So you're going to take both pieces and you're going to put them good sides together. You're going to do this same thing for your interfacing. Now, most of the time with just the white cotton fabric, there is no good or bad side, so it doesn't really matter. So what I like to do is if there is any leftover of my marking line from when I cut it out, I make that my bad side. And you're going to pin all along where that larger side is, which is our 6-inch line. You're going to do the same thing for your interfacing. You're just going to pin it all along that 6-inch line, and you're just going to sew along that area. Don't sew them closed, don't sew all the way around, just that 6-inch line. Now you should have 2 pieces that look like this, and you can start to see our mask coming together. Woo, we're getting there. Now again, the good and bad side part of sewing is going to come into play here. So you are going to take the fabric that is going to be on the outer side of your mask, and you're going to make sure that it is facing up with the good side up. And then you're going to take your interfacing fabric, and the good side is where the stitch doesn't show. And you're going to put the good side on top of the good side of your outer fabric, so that if you were holding it in your hands on both sides, it would be where the stitch is showing. Next, you're going to pin all along the lines of both of those pieces. So now we're going to merge the outer fabric with the inner fabric. And something that's very important is make sure that wherever on your mask, somewhere on the sides particularly is where I put it, you're going to leave just a little 1-inch area and don't sew that closed. This is going to be so we can flip it inside out. Now you're just going to sew all along where we pinned, making sure to leave that opening to be able to flip it inside out. Now, if you're new to sewing, I would say leave a bigger opening, because if you've never flipped fabric inside out, it can get pretty irritating. Now this little extra part is totally optional, but I think that it makes the world of difference. Before you flip your fabric inside out, anywhere that has a sharp corner, you're just going to cut that corner off, making sure that you don't cut through the stitch. And what this is going to do is when we flip our fabric inside out, those corners on the good side will now be able to fold all the way out and be pointy. Now you're going to take your fabric and flip it inside out. Now this can get a little difficult if you didn't leave enough room for yourself. So I would suggest using a pen that does not have the ink out, just something long to push the fabric out. You can use a straw. I just use my finger. And now that it's flipped inside out, you're just going to sew your mask flat so that it's going to be easier to work with now, because you'll find that it's very kind of like bubbly and bumpy. I said iron flat, right? I think I might have said sewn flat. You're gonna iron it flat. Now you can see the shape of our mask really taking form. And we're gonna work on the nose part. So for the wiring, you can use a pipe cleaner. This green stuff that I have is basically what they put around like bread, you know, the little twisties. Or you can just use like a really thin normal wire. I usually just cut out a piece that's about 3 inches. And you're going to find that opening hole that we left. You're going to tuck your wire into the mask and bring it up to the side that you want to be your nose side. Now the template that we made, you'll notice that there is going to be an area that juts out a little bit more. It's a little bit higher of an arch, and that is usually where I make the nose side. Just looks more natural once it fits the face. You're going to tuck that really snug up along that seam, and you're just going to pin it into place because we are going to sew a little pocket area kind of for this nose wire to sit so that it doesn't slip down into our mask. Now you can see I have it all pinned, and you're just going to sew along that line, keep it really snug. Now, normally for this, I use a thread that matches whatever my fabric color is, but for the purpose of this video, I'm using black thread just so that you can actually see where I'm putting the stitches. So now you can see we have a little pocket where our nose wire sits perfectly. Next, we are going to start to work on our earpieces. Now, you're going to go on the sides of your fabric where our 3-inch line was, if you remember, and you're just going to fold in on the interfacing side about 1 inch, you know, maybe 1/2 inch, depends. And you're going to sew, or oh my gosh, you're going to iron that flat. And this is optional. You don't have to iron it flat if you don't want to. You can just immediately pin it into place, but I find it a lot easier to sew if you iron it. Now that you have both sides pinned, you're going to just check to make sure that you didn't tuck it too much in, that it can still fit a face. And you're going to sew along those pins as close as you can to the edge. And what that is going to do is create a little pocket for our elastic. Now for elastic, you can use just normal white stretchy elastic like this. You can also use this stretchy bead string. This is great if you're on a budget because you can get a lot for very cheap. It's just not the most comfortable on your ears. And my favorite is you can use just thin cut strips of t-shirt and it'll roll itself up, and this is definitely the most comfortable, but you know, you gotta find t-shirts that you don't mind ripping up. Now for this mask in particular, I am going to use the bead string just so that I can show you, since we're making 3 masks and I have 3 different kinds of ears, 3 different kinds of elastic for the ears, so you can see all the different looks. Now I like to cut a little bit extra because it's better again to have more than less, and so I cut about 8 or 9 inches. And you're going to take a little piece of wire that you would use for a nose, just any extra that you have, create a little curve at the end, and you're going to slip that wire into that little pocket that we made for the earpiece. Slip your elastic through the little curve that we made in the wire, and then when you pull it down out of the pocket, that's how you're slipping the elastic through into this earpiece. Now you can easily end it here and just tie off the ends, but what I like to do is add a little bead onto the end, and what this is gonna do is it's gonna make our earpieces adjustable. Now this is great if you're making masks for other people, because you don't always know what's gonna fit somebody else's face or how long you need to make the earpieces. So you're just gonna slip the bead through both of the pieces of bead string. Wow, I cannot talk today, I'm so sorry. And then you're gonna tie off the ends. And now you'll see what this does is it makes it so that you can slide the bead up and down. If you put it closer to the mask, the earpieces will be tighter, or you can pull it all the way to the end and the earpiece will be looser. And there you have your mask. This is definitely my favorite kind of mask because I feel like it just fits the face a lot better. It sits really snug, and I think it looks the most nice. I don't really know how to phrase it. It's weird to talk about masks as if it's in a fashion trend, but yeah, this is definitely my favorite kind to make. It's just a little bit more tedious. Now for this next mask, you are going to want to cut out your inner fabric and your outer fabric, and you're just going to cut out 2 rectangles. The easiest to do it is make them 6 by 9. That is pretty much fine for an average size face. You're just going to make sure that your pieces are ironed down flat. And make sure that your pieces are good sides together. Now for this one, I am going to use those little strips of t-shirts that we talked about for the earpieces. Now for the length of these, the way that I do it is I do about 5 to 5.5 inches for a small size, 6.5 to 7 for a larger size, and then 8 to 8.5 for a very large size, I guess. Now this part can get a little complicated if you are not familiar with sewing. So we have our fabrics and they're good sized together. What you're going to do is take your elastic earpieces that we have right here, and what you're going to do is flip them inside in between the 2 pieces of fabric and pin them about 1 inch away from those ends. Now this is where those clips really come in handy for this mask because it can be a little hard to pin 2 pieces of fabric and a piece of elastic all together. Now again, I'm just going to show you, you want to slip it in between those 2 pieces of fabric to where it is curved inside of the mask, almost like the earpieces are inside out. Pin them or clip them 1 inch away from the ends. And then you're just going to pin all along the outside of this mask, making sure to leave that little 1 inch gap to be able to flip it inside out. Now, once again, we have it all sewed and we are going to cut the corners, which, like I said, is optional, but trust me, it makes the world of a difference if you do this. Making sure not to cut any of the stitch. Now that we have our corners cut, we can flip our mask inside out to where it's right side in. You're gonna have something that looks like this, and now you can see those elastic earpieces are flipped outwards the way that they should be, and you're just going to iron it flat to make it easier to work with so it's not so puffy anymore. Now, since this mask is a rectangle, you can choose what side you want to be your top or bottom. And just like the last mask, we are going to slip a piece of nose wire in, tuck it up against the seam of whatever side you want your top to be, and then you're going to pin that snugly into place. And just for the cosmetic look of this mask, since it is one big rectangle, I like to sew all the way around the rectangle instead of just doing one stitch across the top. It just, what I think, looks a lot better. Looks more consistent, like that stitch is meant to be there. Now you're gonna have something that looks like this, and our mask is all closed up, and you are going to pleat it. Now, I would say start with a bit, like less than a third of the mask, starting from the top where your nose wire is. You're gonna pleat downwards, iron it flat so that it stays and kind of holds that shape. And again, this is where those clips really come in handy, because now we have our fabric doubled up on those little sides where it's pleated, so it can be kind of hard to pin, so I just like to clip it into place. Next, you're just going to pleat your mask one more time, taking that top section and pleating it down, so now it looks like you kind of have a bit of an accordion fold going down. Clip it into place and iron it flat so that it is going to be easier to work with. And then all you're going to do is sew a straight stitch down on each side. And you end up with something that looks like this. This is the first masks that I started out making. These are the OG masks that got me into sewing, and these are super great for people with beards or just to make masks that are more adjustable for face shapes, because since you have it pleated, you can see that when you pull down, there's a lot of extra room on that mask. You can fit a beard there, you can fit a long chin, whatever you want. Now for this next mask, it is going to be a combination of the two masks that we made previously. So you're going to cut out your inner fabric and your outer fabric into two rectangles. I like to make these a little bit smaller than the last one, so I do 5 inches by 8 inches, but this is where it's totally up to you on how big you want to make this mask. This one is really great for making adjustable masks to fit smaller faces or bigger faces. You're going to put your pieces good sides together, and you're going to sew all the way around the rectangle, leaving that little gap so that we can still fold it inside out. Now that you have it completely sewn into a square, you're going to once again cut your corners and then flip your mask inside out. You're going to slip your nose wire in, again pick whatever end you want to be the nose piece or the top of the mask, and fit it snugly up against that seam, clip it into place, and once again you're going to just sew all the way around. This one really doesn't matter, you can go straight across if you want, or you can sew a full square. I like to do the full square just because I feel like it looks a little bit more clean. Now that you have it completely sewn, your nose piece is in place. You are going to do what we did with the first mask, where you fold the sides down, creating little pockets, and you're going to iron those into place so that it is just a little easier to sew. It's going to hold that shape more, and you're going to pin them closed so that your mask looks a little something like this, and then you're just going to do a straight stitch down along the ends. Now that we have that done for this mask, I am going to use the normal elastic, and again, you can make the earpieces as long as you want. For this one, to fit my face, I am doing them 8 inches to leave a little bit more wiggle room for when I tie them together. You're going to slip your wire in like we did with the very first mask that has the little curved end, and you're going to pull that elastic through these little pockets. Now that your earpieces are slipped through, you're just going to tie a little knot towards those ends, and your mask is going to be completed. Now you'll see that the tighter that you pull on that elastic, the more it's going to cinch that little pocket together and fit the face better. This is great for making adjustable masks because you can make the face as big as you want, you can pull the elastic as tight as you want. And that is the 3 ways that I make masks during this pandemic. I don't want this video to come across like it is me trying to be fashionable or making, I'm just trying to make light of this situation. If you want to make masks to help out, this is just some simple ways that you can do so. Thanks for watching, you guys. I hope that you like, comment, and subscribe, and leave me a comment below what you want to see next from me. Bye!